factories, because before that we didn't have even our own clothes productions, for example, clothes, boots, so on, cars also. But since 2014, when West started to imply sanctions, import started to decrease, and there appeared many new factories, local factories. So appeared many jobs for people, and usually products that are being produced inside Russia, they are cheaper than imported ones, obviously. That's why everyone likes it. And also everyone likes that there is high rise in agricultural sector, that we produce our own wheat, our own meat, like chicken, so on.
Do you think prices are going to get more expensive now that, again, Russia used to sell a lot of its oil to even places like Canada and other places. Wheat, again, like you guys said, you guys are huge wheat producers. You guys used to sell to a lot of countries. Do you think that now, since Russia is not going to be able to sell, and a lot of their assets for banks and companies now are frozen, do you think that that might cause prices to rise and maybe impact the individual because of this one?
Yes, I think there will be a price rise, but not a big one, because you see, we cannot sell, for example, our wheat, oil, and gas to NATO countries, right? Or to the countries that voted for sanctions. But by population and by demand, there are much more countries that can buy and want to buy, like Southeastern Asia, right? China, such countries as like maybe Pakistan, they produce their agriculture themselves, but they can buy oil, gas. India, Brazil, they didn't put sanctions, like BRICS countries, and South, like countries like Indonesia, Philippines, so on. Yeah.
So there's
And
still like
by
a
the way,
big market.
South Korea also, they like they got exception from sanctions. And by the way, have you heard news about Iran deal, nuclear deal?
Partially, not all. I didn't really read too much into it.
Yes, as I got it, right today or tomorrow, they want to gather in Iran, in Tehran, to sign this nuclear deal and let Iran sell their oil. But you
Sounds
see,
good.
the issue is that Iran is our neighbor, like
Yeah.
other side of the Caspian Sea. So Russia, for example, easily can sell our oil through Iran. It's not a problem.
Yeah, kind of like a third person. So we
Yeah.
talked. So we opened up sanctions. Let's go back into this Ukraine-Russian war. Now, a lot of people are saying that this war could be possibly because maybe Putin was upset from the president of Ukraine personally on a personal level. Do you think that could be the issue? Is that why? Do you think or is there another reason why Putin went into Ukraine, and it's not just because of, maybe there was issues between them?
You see, there is a big misunderstanding of Western nations about Putin, because, like, one person, he cannot decide anything in such a big, large country, right? It's logical. There are always elites. There are always clans in the political, like, authority, like, how do they say, Beaumont, or uh, in the political sphere. So there are big clusters of like powerful players in Russia, inside Russia. So it's oligarchs, those very rich people, militaries, siloviki, how they like to call it in West, like siloviki. It's a group of police, FSB, like ex-KGB judges,
Yeah.
so on. Yeah, and also opposition parties. So many kinds of powers, and since 2008, since Georgian conflict, Russia realized that our military is very weak, that we cannot fight properly, like in wars, so on. And since that time, for example, militaries got better and better. It's like was complete reconstruction of military from Soviet type to newer type. And they got high rising salaries, they got lots of money, lots of building around the country, so on. And you see, and Putin, he wanted oligarchs to get less power. As you know, Khodorkovsky, Berezovsky, those oligarchs from 90s, they were accused of criminal acts, sent out of the country, jailed, so on. So now oligarchs are like in the middle, maybe siloviki and militaries on this level on the top. And opposition is very low because usually people in Russia, they don't trust this opposition. they even call them like fake opposition. Yeah. And the problem is that you cannot say that Putin decided to do it himself. You see, only like personally. It's like demonization maybe or something like that. It's I think it's the idea of this some clans or those parties in power games maybe so on. But ordinarily citizen, they mostly from what I know from my surroundings, from my relatives, friends, my colleagues and others, I can say that maybe 20 to 30% of population is against. Maybe around 40 to 50% are pro-war, and others don't give a shit. They're not interested. Yeah. And you see, what pushed Putin to decide like that? Because this war goes on for a long time. I observed it since 2014. So every year, all this information, every day we hear from news from that period. For example, I doubt that Western people heard anything about that since 2014, since Crimea joined Russia back. You see? And I personally went to Crimea in 2015. I liked it very much. And generally speaking, people are in Russia, inside Russia, are very happy that Crimea came back to Russia. You see? And Putin became again very popular after Crimea joined back. And now, this time conflict, the people who are pro-war, I cannot say that they want war. Yeah, no one wants war, but it was inevitable. I like observed it since 2014, and at that time I told everyone who I know that war is inevitable because the authorities of Ukraine, they became more and more hostile towards Russia. Of course, I can understand them, of course, but you see, people of Russia have to think about people of Russia, not about people of Ukraine or other country. And
I'm gonna ask you a question here since you brought up that. So in your opinion, that this war is a united decision by all leadership within Russia. This is not a decision that was made by Putin, right? This is by everybody.
Not solely.
No.
Did you notice when Putin announced this war, like beginning of this war?
Yeah.
He gathered all elites,
yes.
Businessmen, the oligarchs, siloviki,
right.
Militaries, yes. And they all personally stood up and agreed on
this.
That's right.
Do you recall the conversation that he had with the intelligence, the leader of the intelligence?
Yeah, I recall.
And it was that particular interaction made it seem clear like they had no choice but to say yes. Everybody will say yes with a gun to the back of their head. But do you think it was? Do you think it was a decision that they had made with logic and looking at what is best for Russia? Like you can tell now, Russia has been secluded from the world. And there are a few countries, maybe Iran and North Korea and such, but the vast majority of the world disagrees with this move.
Crypto, but you forget about India, about China, about
So let us
Brazil.
say 10 out of 100, let's say 10 countries out of 200 or
But
190, whatever.
but you have to count by population and by economic power. You see?
Even China is a big ally of Russia. But even China in this, what is going on, they're not saying Russia is doing a good thing or doing what their right is in protecting their people by attacking Ukraine. They're saying NATO should have been quieter, but they're not supporting Russia, even a big ally of Russia, China. And they are part of the sanctioning countries. Even to today, under the sanctions, China is one of the countries that is sanctioning Russia. So, was this a wise decision for even the Russian people?
Yeah,
Do
I
you,
think
do
really
you,
it was. Yeah. Okay. I
do you
listen.
do you believe Putin's context for war
Yes, of course. Yeah, I
for the
knew. I
invasion
have
of
said
Ukraine?
to you that I knew it in 2014, especially when murders started in Ukraine, inside Ukraine, when they killed a lot of people in Odessa, for example. I watched the
Hmm.
photos and videos about how people killed other like pro-Russian people online and so on. And I also observed this war conflict in Donbass
But
and
you
Luhansk.
but you don't think there's not a possibility of propaganda within your own country as there's propaganda in every other country?
But how can there
Like
be
like
All
propaganda
right,
if
guys, we're
I
just
would
doing this one by one. So we'll
yeah.
bring you guys in after we're done with them. Thank you.
Yeah. How can it be propaganda if I watch it in YouTube? If I watch it in internet? I don't have a TV. You see, guys?
Do you think though that this could have been avoided? That this war, there was other ways to resolve it. Even if Russia was upset with Ukraine potentially trying to join NATO, do you think military was the best way to approach it? And do you think as big of a military setup, and not even that, I mean, Russia in one way or another, even Putin specifically, tried to trick the world in saying we're not going to attack Ukraine. We had 2 months where intelligence, the American intelligence and the United Kingdom intelligence, all were saying Russia was massing troops, they're going to go into Ukraine. And the response from the Russian leadership is, and Ukraine and Putin specifically is, no, we might not attack them. We still haven't decided. Do you think this was a wise decision to get into a full-scale war?
As I have said, Crypto, it would happen inevitably. So let it be sooner than later, right? The like military conflict would happen anyway. Anyway, I could predict it even back then in 2014, because we have problems with Russian people have problems with Nazism. You see, since World War II, and everything that is connected with Nazis is like a red for a bull, right? Red
What's
color
the
for a
goal of
bull.
this war? To the Russian people and to the Russian leadership? What is the goal? What's the
Yes.
objective?
I think it's the change of regime in Ukraine, first of all. Second is to make an example of what happens to those countries that anti-Russian. We have to be cynical. I'm cynical. That's why I tell you what I think really. So every other countries that will see it and understand that what will happen if you install Nazi connected. I won't say that Ukraine authorities are Nazis, all of them, but they are Nazi connected. There are this Azov battalion, many speeches, nationalistic speeches, and we hear it every day in Russia.
Okay.
You see,
Do you
and we
think?
don't hear it from TV.
Yeah.
We hear it from internet, from games we play when we chat,
Do
from
you think? Do you
everything.
think though that? So let's go with this point. Do you believe that the Ukrainian leadership and the president was elected? Let's start there.
No doubt, no doubt.
He was
There
elected
were
by the
elections, and
Ukrainian
when
people.
Zelensky elections were kind of pure, I think. Yes,
Yeah.
they elected him.
Okay, so the people of Ukraine elected him. Now, Russia sees him as a Nazi or sees him as anything else. He was elected by the people of Ukraine. Similar to the people of Russia electing or choosing Putin. Even if the rest, a big chunk of the world, we won't say a majority, although it seems like a majority, but we won't say majority. A big chunk of the world may not agree with the strategies and the way that Russia does things, but that's okay. To each
Yep.
their own. They do their own thing, and they're their own country with their own rules and their own leadership. Since we have come to a conclusion that Zelensky was elected by the Ukrainian people, regardless of how Russia views him, don't you think that they have the right to maintain whichever leadership they choose?
Of course, they have the right to maintain any kind of. They can have elected Hitler himself, right? If they wanted to, but like principles of democracy, it's the power of majority, right? And in Russia, for example, majority doesn't like Nazism in any kind of like appearance, and that's why. How can I say it? That's why I said that war was inevitable, because we cannot solve this conflict in any way, because every year Ukraine was told, please stop this anti-Russian rhetorics, please stop anti-Russian actions, please don't like forbid Russian language, so on, so on, so on. They don't just listen. They just didn't listen, and that's all. And that's why war was inevitable, as I said before.
So the goal you mentioned a little while ago was to go in and change leadership. Now, given
Yes,
that we have come to the
because-
conclusion that the leadership was selected by the people of Ukraine, we said Zelensky was selected by the people of Ukraine. You
Yes.
agree to that?
Yes.
Don't you think that no matter how much times Russia changes the leadership in Ukraine, that eventually in a couple of years the leadership is going to go back to similar to Zelensky, because the people of Ukraine, they want this leadership. So
Then
does
there
Russia
will be
go into
more
war every couple of years
people.
when a new president is selected?
Yes. And then if new president will be again anti-Russian, there will be another war and another war. It's like logical, because as I said, this conflict couldn't be solved without military actions.
Okay, let's speak on what is happening in the ground. How do you think the Russian army and the Russian troops are performing? How do you think they're doing in this war so far?
Oh, I think mediocre, like according to plan, but underestimated. Like you see, many people inside Russia, for example, as for myself, we think that Putin is too liberal, that he's too soft on foreign, like in foreign policy, because from year to year we were first of all controlled by Americans, like in 90s, in the beginning of 2000s. Then we had always accused of something, and people are tired of it, because of course we have pride as Russian people, and we are being accused, we are evil empire, we are like bad people in the world, and that's why people want to react, like, okay, you are calling us evil, let's solve this conflict, like people do from the beginning of the history of humanity. Yeah, and you see, I lost my track. What was again?
That's okay.
The
So,
idea.
yeah, how Russia's doing in the war.
Yeah. So, because I hear from mass media, especially from Western mass media, I watch online CNN, Fox, Indian, Chinese, every kind of media, and everyone says, "Oh, that was a fail of Blitzkrieg of First War." But I don't remember any single word of Russian authorities that this war has to be fast. You see, there is no single word Putin be it or minister of defense or militaries that said that we want fast war. No one said it. No, that's why, for example, in my opinion, this war will last for a month, maybe approximately. It's my personal opinion.
So, guys, for
Because
everybody in the
it's
streams,
only how
sorry to
many?
cut you off.
9 days, right? 9 days. Just 9 days past.
So far, 9 days, yes. So,
Yeah. Because when USA invaded, attacked Iraq, it took like 3 weeks or 4 weeks for them to take it, right? So USA military is undoubtedly the strongest in the world, and it was strongest, obviously, at that moment of invasion of Iraq. And you told me like last time that how can you want to change elected regime in another country, but USA does it all the time, and it works. You see. And it works. And Russia learns its lessons. It watches USA closely, and if USA succeeds, have success in such regime changes, why can't Russia do it?
So I'm just going to say, those of you that are in the stream, make sure you click that like button. We are speaking to Artila, I believe. I'm not sure if I'm saying that correct. He's a Russian citizen and kind of giving us his view of what is happening here. He's a pro-supporter of Putin and kind of this decision to advance into Ukraine. Now, we talked, so in the eyes of the Russian people, though, in terms of casualties, we're seeing a lot of things happen in this war. We're seeing Russian artillery be left behind and bombing of Russian tanks, and we've seen tractors. Maybe you've seen some of those videos, the tractors being
yes, of course,
being pulled. I think to the world, this showed that Russia was a lot more outdated and weaker, not as strong perhaps as we thought. Is this a similar image that was seen by people in Russia? Were they kind of shocked that this is the status of their military?
But you see, casualties are not very high at the moment. Of course, Ukrainian side says that there are a lot of, I don't know, several thousand, they say, I think. But according to my sources, it's about Russian militaries, they lost around 700 to 800 personnel, and Lugansk and Donetsk republics also around maybe 1,000 people. So in summary, it would be how many? 1,700 maybe people. But historically, you can know, and usually Russia doesn't pay much attention to casualties. Usually, people of Russia they don't think that of course it's bad when soldiers die, but when there is a war, any number of casualties is okay. So because it happens, it's a war. Yeah. It's a war. People die in war. So, and if a soldier goes to serve, he signs contract, so he agrees to die for the interests of his country, right?
So, Ruby, somebody in the chat, he's asking whether, there's obviously going to be civilian casualties. Do you think that is part of war? That's okay, or do you think there should be other ways discovered and found out and try every other option before risking civilian casualties?
Yeah, I think it's very bad, of course. I don't accept civil casualties as a general, of course. But for example, when I observed war in Libya, and I was shocked when I heard that Americans, when they killed a lot of civilians in airstrikes, they said, we apologize for killing civilians, but it's how did they say? There is a special military term, some kind
casualty
of
of war. You mean
collateral damage? Collateral damage, right? Yeah. And as I told you, Crypto, why people call Putin liberal and too soft on Ukraine? Because of course we have casualties. People don't like when we have casualties, and they say that Putin is too soft on Ukraine in this conflict. For example, maybe you heard Kadyrov. He's the head of one of republics in Russia, and he said, "Please let us fight real war, not parody." because we don't use our air forces almost at all. We don't bomb them, right? Their militaries, because they hide in the towns. Of course, we cannot carpet bomb towns. That's why we have casualties, because usually Russian tactics of attacking cities is like in Chechnya wars. We surround them, let give civilians 72 hours, maybe some time to exit the city, and then like level it to the ground with artillery, with airstrikes, so on, so on, so on. And
Do you
Putin
think
doesn't want
that
to.
is what's going
Putin
to
doesn't want
happen?
to use tactics in Ukraine.
Do you
That's why, by the way, many militaries in Russia, they are angry at Putin because he's too soft.
Yeah. Do you think this is the next step for Kiev? Is that sort of
No,
strategy? Is everybody leave and then bomb
actually, I don't
flattening
think
Kiev?
so. I don't think so. I think it will be somehow similar to Kherson, the first city that fell, and Odessa capturing of Kharkiv and Odessa will show also how it will be done. But from the beginning of this war, I think Kiev is a disguise. Like, actually, I think maybe I'm wrong, but actually, our militaries, they don't want to occupy the city. They want to surround it, of course, and then like the attention of the world, of the NATO countries, and of the Ukrainian forces will be attracted to Kiev. But you see, the major results that Russia needs, I think, they are situated in the eastern part of Ukraine and southern part of Ukraine, because according to my military knowledge, there is a big military group of Ukrainians in the eastern part, and southern part is important as like sea region and connections with Prидnestrovia. You know, Pridnestrovia, it's a part of Moldova where Russians also have militaries.
Gotcha.
And when our forces will capture this southern part, including Odessa, including Mariupol, and then they will connect with the forces that are currently besieging Kharkiv. And after that, this eastern part of Ukrainian forces will be encircled and then destroyed inside this circle. And I think, according to our military analysts, that this eastern part of Ukraine is the biggest at the moment in Ukraine, and the more able to fight at the moment. So by destroying this group, Russian military, they will get more abilities to move around Ukraine, because many forces will be freed from encircling this group. And I think it will take about maybe a week or 2 weeks.
Another week to 2 weeks to complete the mission. So I have another question for you. So we are seeing a lot of images and perspectives of Russian soldiers that have almost no morale and no will to fight. Not only that, there's a lot of videos circulating of Russian forces saying they've been deceived into entering Ukraine. They were told this was a military drill, and they're 18, 19-year-old kids, and even their families are not aware that they're out to war. So is this something that you see as propaganda, or are you aware of what is happening? Is this something that's normal for soldiers to just...
Oh yes, of course, Crypto. When I served in military, there was I have read papers on how to behave when you are being imprisoned by enemy. So to save your life, you have to say anything they want. And even there were tips what to say, and so on, so on, so on. And after when you exchanged back, then you get back to fight. You see, it's just a military trick. It's usual. It's since Soviet times.
Got you. So I will just repeat.
And
So
by the way,
what is
Kripta,
being
again,
said?
I'm sorry,
Yeah,
I'm sorry to interrupt you.
yeah.
Again, you said that they are young, so on so on. But videos, usual videos of our militaries that are marching, for example, inside cities, for example, Kherson, Melitopol, and others recent, like 2 days, 3 days ago, they don't look very young, like they're professional, because all militaries that are inside Ukraine, I know that for 100%, they're on contracts. They're not drafted.
Gotcha.
Drafted are inside Russia, and also, for example, my two cousins' husbands, they serve in Rosgvardia.
Okay.
Rosgvardia is a police force,
Gotcha.
but there's like police special force, and currently they are serving on the border with Ukraine. Like one of them is in Crimea, and another is in Belarus. And I think yesterday or maybe 2 days ago they entered Ukraine because they will be used to pacify captured cities, to fight with civilians. Like not fight with civilians, but to pacify them, like they
Gotcha.
say.
So so again, I will repeat what is being said here. So Artilla, so basically is saying that the military, Russian military, is trained that when they are captured, there is a specific scenario that they display to whoever captures them in order to reduce the risk that they will remain captured. So these are scenarios that are supposedly that the Russian military is trained to do when they are captured. The soldiers are trained to say, we weren't planning to fight. We were just sent here unknowingly. That this is all just a play that they're trained to do as part of sort of an intelligence thing and psychological thing that the soldiers are trained to do.
Yes, because this is old practice. It originated from Soviet Union times, even I think so. And also, you have said about the vehicles like tanks, BMP, BTR, that are being like left standing on the sides of the road, so on. And I think it's my opinion, personal, that there was also they were told to do it in any very dangerous situation. When you understand that the vehicle won't survive, you have to run from the vehicle and try to get to main forces on foot, walking. Yeah.
But the fact that these sources are being left behind, like, and I mean, you've seen
And they,
again some of the
yeah.
forces. We've even seen where Russian, the tanks are stopped on the side of the roads and the troops don't have food. Even the convoys that were sent towards Kiev, there were reports by various, international monitoring agencies that the troops were held still because they're waiting for reinforcements of fuel. Is this poor planning by the Russian army? Is this because they have no support or what is happening with
Of
the
course,
Russian?
yes, I understood your crypto. Yeah, there are always problems in logistics in war. It's inevitable also. Of course, many situations when you are out of gasoline, like oil for tanks and so on, so on. But as for food, I also can say that it's a fake. It's of course wishful thinking, because as to my experience, one truck can get 10,000 ratios, military ratios. And Russian military rations, they don't differ much from, for example, United States ratios. It's the same food. Yeah, it can, and soldiers can last long on that food, long enough, months. They're trained to do it. And can you imagine if you say about, for example, a convoy 60 miles long, right? How many trucks with ratios are there? And you always forget that Russia is very large country. We have a lot like large distances. For example, I go shopping to another nearby city, 500 kilometers one way. It's not a problem for me. And Russian logistics is very good because we always move our forces inside our country, and it's about maybe 4,000 kilometers one way to another way, and so on. So many training has happened since 2014. And it's just a wishful thinking to think that our soldiers can be hungry and out of food. I can 100% tell you that it's not true. And as for videos when soldiers are maybe robbing shops for food and so on, those filmed are from Donetsk and Luhansk battalions. They are not regular militaries, like ex-rebels. Russia is using them to the owners of this land. It justifies the movement, the capturing cities and so on, because many of people from Donetsk and Lugansk Republic and people who fight there as rebels, who fought there as rebels, are from those cities that are being captured at the moment. And they can say, we are locals, it's our land, and that's why give it back, for example, something like that. It's like legal matter, justify.
Gotcha. Again, guys, if you have not clicked that like button, please do that. We're continuing our conversation. Now, there's a lot of threats, especially with involvement from the international community and the sanctions of nuclear war. We hear Putin a lot about, whether they're direct threats or insinuating that Russia will use its nuclear weapons in war or against any country that gets involved. Is this just a rhetoric, sort of a fear tactic, or is this? Do you think
it's a muscle flexing? It's just usual muscle flexing that has been happening since Caribbean crisis. So it's okay. It's like every year you can hear something like that. That we are nuclear power. Another side says we are nuclear power. Of course, everyone understands that when nuclear conflict starts, no one will survive. No one. So no one needs that war. Nor Russians, nor Americans, nor Europeans, nor Chinese. So it's muscle flexing, and of course it's a problem of rhetorics also. For example, I can understand that when Putin says about nuclear, he wants Russian citizens to feel safe, right? Like we are strong, we have nuclear powers, and if we, for some reason, start to lose, even then we will be safe because we can destroy the whole world. Americans and Europeans also say it in the same way. It's just logic.
What do you think will happen if the European Union decides to get involved in this war? If there's NATO troops that get involved, or the United States or the West as a whole?
Zero possibility. Yeah, there is zero possibility that NATO will be involved.
Is it out of fear of Russia?
To my opinion.
Is it out of fear?
Yeah. Yes. No one in Russia believes that NATO will join this war.
What do they fear? Do they fear a Russian nuclear attack? Do they fear Russian army attacking all of Europe? Do they fear if NATO attacks? NATO is made up of the United States, the vast majority of European countries. There's a lot of countries, a lot of firepower in NATO.
Yes.
Do you think Russia has the capacity to attack the entire world?
NATO, of course, there is only one fear that stops NATO from attacking Russia. Otherwise, Russia would be attacked long ago, in Soviet times maybe. It's a nuclear war. Yeah, we can destroy the whole world. And I also agree, for example, with Putin. And I was thinking that even before Putin told this openly, that if there would be no Russia, then why would we need such a world? You see?
Gotcha. So it's the nuclear. So they're not empty threats then. It's not this. Russia is willing to sacrifice the world for the sake of this war, essentially. For the sake of this war against Ukraine. Because, again, the whole world, if they do get involved, they're getting involved for the sake of Ukraine. So Russia is willing to sacrifice the world for the sake of getting a victory in Ukraine.
I wouldn't say willing. I would say ready. Because, for example, this war, and especially the conflict with NATO, we in Russia, I cannot say that all people of Russia, but majority of people of Russia, they think of it as a an issue of survival of our country. You see, Russia is very like we have many difficult issues inside our country. A lot of regions with different nationalities, different republics, different interests, different languages, so on, so on, so on. And that's why there has to be something consolidating all of us together, like 145 million or 146 million of people. Yeah, and that's why. But this conflict with NATO, by the way, it consolidates our population because people tend to support our authorities more and more.
War
And,
people
as I said,
generally in war people generally go around
Russia
leadership.
is ready to use. I think Russia is ready to use its nuclear weapon if there will be a full-scale, large conflict with NATO. Yes.
Now, do you think so? People talk about Trump, and there's a lot in the, at least the American media, that Trump could have solved this, and he was really close to Putin, and he could have convinced Putin. And do you think any leadership in the United States could have made any difference? Do you think this, again, you were mentioning a bit earlier that this was an unavoidable war, it would have happened no matter what? Do you think a different United States leadership would have made a difference?
Yeah, maybe Kennedy could, maybe, but I don't know. Trump is a clown.
Yeah.
He is like, yeah, he.
But in the eyes of eyes of Putin and in the eyes of Russia,
what has he done when he was the president? Yeah.
So did Putin see him as a toy, like he was easy to adjust and convince? Is that why there seemed to be some positive connection there between Trump and Putin?
But actually, I'm always laughing at it, and I just cannot see how Trump was connected to Putin. It's something like, why would he need to? Trump was no one before he started to be a president. He didn't play any role, any like political role. Why would Putin need him? I don't know. It's just a comedy, something like comedy when people say that Trump is a puppet of Putin. Why would Putin need him? Who is he, Trump? Who was he before he became president?
It's a really interesting conversation we're having with you, and completely different perspective than we're used to hearing, for sure.
Oh, thank you.
I appreciate you coming out and giving us your opinion and your thoughts, and we'll, everybody will judge based on their own view of what is happening and why it's happening. But it's good to hear from two sides.
Yeah. By the way, I have to say my final, for example, word, that people of Russia, they never don't like or hate, for example, American people or European people, and so on, so on. We also like to travel, to communicate, and so on. We just don't like, of course, authorities of American authorities and their politics. And of course, we understand that USA, for example, it's a natural geopolitical concurrent. How do they say concurrent? Rival. Yeah, rival. You see? That's why it's logical that, by the way, sooner or later, bigger conflict also will happen. I can predict it. Maybe in 10 or 20 years, maybe. Some. When the resources will start to come to the end, and all resources will end someday, then the big conflict will start.
We appreciate your opinion. Thanks for coming in and speaking.
Okay, thank you.
Perfect. Thanks, Arturo.
Yeah, goodbye.
So you guys heard of an opinion of someone from the Russian side, and I'm not, like I said, I don't like to be the judge of what people hear. You have to hear both sides, regardless of what you view as right, what you view as wrong, as long as it's said in a respectful manner. And that's what we try to do, all right? I mean, what he stated his opinion in a respectful manner, and we appreciate that. And everybody has their mind to help them judge what is going on. What matters most right now is there's the people of Kiev are surrounded. Russian forces are around the capital Kiev, and it is looking tougher and tougher by the day for the people of Ukraine. So absolutely on our minds for sure, and it's a tough situation, and it is always the innocent that suffer in any on both sides, and people don't get the full image. Regardless of where you're at, you always get a part of the image, and I'm sure the people of Russia get a part of the image as to what is happening. They get the part that benefits them or benefits the leadership, and same goes for everywhere else in the world. Everybody gets a somewhat distorted image of reality, and the only way to get the full image of reality is to try and see both sides. So that's what we hope to be able to bring to you. I know we had a bit of a disconnection in the stream there. We were at 2,000, but the numbers don't matter. It always starts with one person, and that's how we spread knowledge. And again, appreciate all of you being here and seeing what is going on. You guys are seeing live images from Kiev, where it's right now 8:30 a.m. A bit of a half hour after. About a half hour after the curfew has been lifted, and let's hope for a safe day for the people of Ukraine and people of Kiev, and that we don't have to report or talk about any casualties or progression in this war. Let's hope this ends now. Now I'm going to end the stream here. I'm a bit tired, to be honest with you guys, and I don't have much of a voice left. So for anybody that missed this interview with, like I said, a civilian from Russia and kind of his view on it, we're going to make it into a video. So make sure you're subscribed and you'll see it in the video. We'll try and compile it and see it that way and show it to you that way. But yeah, we appreciate it, and thank you for joining the stream and for supporting. And if you've not clicked that subscribe, please do that. We will be live, back for you tomorrow. And we appreciate all of you. We'll be back tomorrow for sure, and we'll give you the live image as soon as we can. Leave the stream up while so I will try. Joshua, I know you're in Kiev, and this helps you, so I for the sake of helping you and giving you access there, I will leave it on. But I just want to let you know, my computer on its own, after a certain amount of hours, the stream shuts off. I've tried to keep it running for more hours before, but it shuts off after sometimes. So just giving you a heads up, but I will keep it running until it shuts off on its own. And for sure, stay safe, and we wish you would you stay safe, and that things settle, and peace reemerges as the main thing over the world. So good night, everybody, and again, if you've not clicked that subscribe, please do that so you can get the notification tomorrow when we go live. Tomorrow we'll try and stream for longer than today. It's been a long day. Actually, I work as well, so I worked a 12-hour shift, and this is kind of right after. And so I'm sorry I couldn't do as much as I would have liked. If you wish to support the stream and the channel, and you can do that through a super chat, that's an option as well. But most important, follow, click subscribe, and we will see you tomorrow. Nice talking to all of you, and have a good night. And I'll leave the stream running like I said.